Prior to starting, viewer discretion is highly recommended. The following is for both amusement and educational purposes. This is the exact federal text. Sean Diddy's testimony in court. Inner City reported on Combs' trial. Press in a crowded courtroom in Manhattan. At last, the walls began to crumble. Near one of the most potent hip-hop males, not due to a statement made by a celebrity or another video that was leaked, but due to until now, the public hardly knew this man. Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, has been raising my voice for years, yet no one. The courts are now dealing with lengthy ignored warnings are now indisputable. As startling video and observation testimonies appeared that matched his tales with uncanny accuracy on day 7, trial sources are located inside the jurors became pale in the courtroom as one of on video, Deal's assertions were verified. Diddy appeared devastated, and his hands were shaking. What occurs when the man who used to shielded you becomes the one who? This isn't simply about tearing down your empire. Evidence. This is the time when Diddy's defense might have really fallen apart. Let's explain how Gone Deal's invoices simply altered everything that Gone Deal has been conversing for years, but hardly anyone and he was taken seriously by the public. A previous Sean Diddy Combs' bodyguard during the amount that Bad Boy Records spent at its height, years spent with Diddy, seeing both the public image and the inner turmoil in innumerable podcasts and interviews. Gene explained a more sinister realm behind Diddy's violent and glitzy outbursts, manipulation, monitoring, and even ominous gatherings involving famous people and underage visitors. Up until recently, a lot attributed it to resentment or pursuing stardom, but currently in the midst of Diddy's trial for federal sex trafficking, his assertions aren't simply coming up again. Deals are being verified in court. Claimed that Diddy operated his business more like a military action as opposed to a record label. Employees were given roles. Confidentiality was protected, and privacy was, he says. Diddy controlled an illusion. Everyone, from helpers to artists with drugs or terror allegiance in the past. Deal claimed to have seen moments over the years of Diddy and Kim's physical abuse. Porter, the deceased mother of a number of children of Diddy, I witnessed things I'll. Deal once remarked, "Never forget, and I remained silent for too long." What's now? It's crucial that the specifics of his tales, particularly those involving parties and claims of assault, are aligning with fresh testimony in a court of law. Describing scenes that are uncannily similar: private rooms with confiscated phones, drunken visitors, and coercion. When Israel Flores, a police officer, provided testimony that the black eye on Cassie was attempting to flee Diddy in 2016, same to Deal recalled the courtroom from years ago. Changed, it wasn't for the first time merely a claim. It was patterns that the prosecution is constructing an argument that this wasn't a man who ever lost control. A man created a mechanism to remain in constant command, and Gene Deal was there to witness it. What's happening now? It's frighteningly obvious that his stories weren't only believable, they might have been the reality all along. The majority of celebrity scandals fall apart due to smoking. However, this one might collapse due to an individual who lacks notoriety and justification for lying. Gone Deal wasn't merely a he was Diddy's right hand as a bystander. Years, and his words don't come from rumor, based on first-hand experience. New legal analysts who cover the case, the jury might be left with no other option except should consider his testimony carefully because his stories are more than merely startling. In a recent interview, they demonstrated consistency. Deal said something that made folks take notice. You shield a man's body from cold years, but you are unable to keep his soul safe. Acknowledged felt involved in the quiet that permitted Diddy's actions to proceed without oversight, and when he explained the notorious Freakoff's private parties where it is claimed that Diddy coerced ladies and guys into intercourse while documenting he asserted that the entire event wasn't merely about enjoyment, it was about power. The camera was constantly rolling, according to Deal. If you ever betrayed Diddy, he possessed the video to ruin you assertions that currently support Cassie Venter's Lil Rod's federal lawsuit claims and assertions made by other accusers, some which make reference to NDAs. Threats and recordings that make Deal's assertions that are more difficult to reject. Deal makes the unsettling suggestion that Diddy's mother. It's possible that Janice Combs made some of the darker inclinations of his son. The family didn't discourage Gone Control, it taught it, he explained. Instances where Janice allegedly conducted a modeling firm that served as a cover for a brothel that offers upscale customers. The court has not verified those assertions, but it appears that the prosecution is weaving a more extensive story that Diddy's actions weren't unintentional. Was passed down, polished, and implemented. In the most recent trial, according to a courtroom observer, a number of jurors clearly responded to one witness's account was similar to Gene's previous interviews. Additionally, when one of Deal's earlier stories were brought up in court records, Diddy allegedly muttered beneath his breath and requested forgiveness, stating that he was anxious because it was the first obvious fissure in his otherwise stony expression. If Gone Deal adopts insiders from the prosecution and the stand say most likely, he won't simply be, he will be providing a witness statement, verifying the universe Diddy created with finally someone with the courage to reveal. As Diddy's attorneys rush to dominate the courtroom narrative, it's getting brutally clear. Their plan was not designed to deal with. They anticipated someone like Gone Deal. Denies they anticipated emotional ex-partners. They weren't prepared for a stoic former bodyguard with nothing at stake and a recollection that corresponds with the proof that Deal has made public. Stated that years ago, he forewarned Diddy to tidy up, particularly after Cassie Ventura broke up with him and started to threaten legal action, saying he saw Diddy disregard his own attorneys, reject negotiations and intensify hostilities with those in his immediate vicinity. That same pattern is currently taking place in real time. According to the prosecution, Diddy turned down earlier this year many plea deals rather of making a transaction that might spare him from decades in prison. He purportedly insisted on opposing everything. The manner in which Diddy explains why feels that he is untouchable, yet in court that the delusion is fading on the day. According to 6 trial sources, Diddy appeared paler and thinner than normal, and clearly shaken. His hands shook while examinations by others, and at one point he even requested a respite from the judge, saying, "I apologize, but I'm a little anxious." This is a man who used to identify as a savage. People attended presidents' parties, and now, billionaires are pleading for pity as the walls close in. From Deal's point of view, additionally becoming helpful in revealing what prosecutors refer to crimes at the enterprise level as, "This wasn't a man," he said. Going out in a spiral, this man coordinating activities with medication providers, NDAs, security, and event planners all concerned, and the court is now at last presenting these tales as non-conspiracy. However, as criminal infrastructure. It not only that. Deal added that he observed Diddy utilizing his influence to silence workers, defraud victims and remove dangers, occasionally by bribes, at other times by using coercion. That's the precise type of systemic actions required to demonstrate racketeering, the type that results in federal penalties. As the case moves forward, the defense is speeding to undermine Deal, but there the time is running out because he isn't referred to as more evidence. It appears conform to what he says. Whether he takes, if Gone Deal has already taken the stand, changed the course of this trial. And for Diddy, that perhaps the most hazardous of all. The reports of Gone Deal don't only support, they alter the prosecution's evidence. Way the jury and the general public are considering the claims of abuse. For reports of Diddy's alleged violent behavior for years, tantrums and deceptive actions were mostly limited to gossip websites or anonymous advice, but now with a bargain describing certain instances that correspond using police reports and sworn testimony, those tales have developed into something that the jury can't overlook anymore. In interviews dating back almost 10 years, Deal recounted an instance where Kim, the ex-partner of Porter, did and his 3 children's mother had to. She protects herself from Diddy physically by cutting his wrist with a shard of something following a violent altercation. At the moment, Deal's narrative was written off as inflated, yet throughout the study, new testimony attested to Porter's having been seen soon at Cedars-Sinai Hospital following an unforeseen domestic conflict. Even if she never openly voiced the conformity of Deal's schedule with that, the ER report has provided his interpretation of events. The new weight Deal was also explained. The surroundings are remarkably clear. About the now famous freak-offs for the purported drug-fueled sexual gatherings at Deal claims that Diddy's mansion things didn't happen on their own, they were coordinated. Security was instructed to seize phones. The illumination was in place to particular tones, and visitors were given instructions on what to do and where to wear. This is nearly identical to what ladies like Cassie Ventura have stated in their testimony, that they were asked to take part in sexual behaviors. They never gave Diddy their entire consent. Said to have described the incidents as encounters and was renowned for observing recordings of them after the fact. Deal claims that he personally observed Cassie acknowledge that in her formative years' connection with Diddy, she was arranging some of the parties in a cooperative manner, making arrangements for other women and occasionally delivering medications, but she clarified as a component of the mental manipulation. She was the subject of Deal's interviews once more. Supported this, although they were unaware of it. They were being mistreated by Diddy. Feel as though they owed him this. Reinterpretation of the abuse from anger on the spur of the moment to a planned system of dominance by the mind is possibly the most detrimental aspect of Deal's testimony. Does it demonstrate that Diddy was more than just a man who lost his temper? He was a man who supposedly designed spaces where individuals felt too high or helpless to refuse, and that's not only unethical in court. Criminal activity would occur if the courtroom was the Deal had access to the outer stage. He was the force behind the scenes backstage. The mission of the bad guy empire is to make sure Diddy's security, but what he observed from behind those silk ropes have evolved into slanderous testimony in a lot of podcasts. Deal's portrayal of Bad Boy was not as a record label, but as a cult of lifestyle when fidelity was upheld by embarrassment and intimidation, as well as where drug abuse, sex, and violence wasn't merely acknowledged, it was necessary. Deal said the main office was designed to resemble a command headquarters. The use of surveillance equipment was not limited to they were either fans or intruders. Inward-facing. For staff monitoring partners, including romantic relationships, everyone was observing everyone's. Deal stated in a 2022 interview that no one was aware of who this revelation was captured on camera. Becomes more significant in light of prosecution have now uploaded images and metadata from security cameras within one of pictures of Diddy's property in New York that seem to record many visitors being led into private spaces. But maybe Deal's most unsettling aspect recollections include what he refers to as grooming procedure. In his opinion, new hires or partners, especially women, were frequently subjected to a procedure of exposure at the testing location. They would fly to see how far they could get. Make them intoxicated, then observe what on camera, he asserted, those who were promptly disconnected from those who resisted. Complied, started attending parties regularly, and Diddy's romantic partners in certain instances. Additionally, Deal's close proximity enabled him to see how possible dangers were eliminated. According to Deal, one woman allegedly attempted to reveal a drug-related incident with a young artist the following week. She was traveling to Paris in a plane with a non-disclosure contract and a financial. The envelope is a well-maintained machine. Stated that it's structure, not chaos. Disguised as chaos. According to legal experts, this distinction is crucial for the prosecution's portrayal of the alleged offenses as a component of a planned project instead of impulsive, careless actions. And Deal's evidence, if he accepts the stand, might be the connecting element. He is aware of the decades' worth of claims. He is aware of where the cameras were Security personnel were instructed to turn away. He is also aware of how the empire maintained itself. Shielded when engaging in covert activities. Diddy has always been about quiet and picture the champagne is covered in fur. Hampton's all-white private planes parties. He positioned himself as more than just a music mogul, but as a sign of authority. However, that persona in court is breaking down, and nobody has emphasized that unwinding is superior to. On the sixth day of the trial, Gone Deal reporters in the courtroom observed a dramatic change in Diddy's look. Gone was that he had a larger-than-life aura and appeared exhausted. Pale and worn down. A reporter from the Breakfast Club said, "It appears that he's 5 years old in 5 days." Deal had previously stated that Diddy's worst fear was irrelevant, it wasn't a jail sentence. Could manage incarceration, but he was unable to. Deal stated, handle not being seen, and now here, he is the focal point of a trial where every little aspect damages his reputation. Spent many years constructing. The prosecution strategy has not only concentrated on providing proof but demolishing a myth where witnesses are being utilized to undermine Diddy's credibility, portraying him as controlling, paranoid, and unpredictable. Former employees characterize him needing complete authority over each and every information from a party's playlist to the visitor's medication dosage. Was purportedly considering that he did more than just throw parties. According to one witness, he planned each minute of them, which is a stark difference. In support of Diddy, who has attempted to portray him as an ardent artist who is misinterpreted, yet the picture isn't enduring after one. Especially the devastating audio evidence was purportedly depicted Diddy giving orders a woman into an intimate space. He clearly flinched and the judge inquired as to whether Diddy apparently needed a recess. Refused, but continued to examine his legal panic team. A little while later, he murmured and requested a toilet break. These responses have not resulted in "I'm shaking" body language that the jury failed to observe. Specialists that news organizations contact imply that Diddy's bodily collapse, his uncharacteristic fidgeting stillness, even his pallid skin could have a greater impact on jurors than any one testimonies. He no longer appears to a mogul retaliating. He appears to be a man who is aware that the empire he established as Diddy has been crashing in real time for years. Gave off a sense of invincibility, but within the silent, immaculate walls of a federal. That ambience in the courtroom has evolved into sensitivity as well as Gone Deal's story reverberating throughout. The proof of what was previously thought to now, bravado, reads as desperation. The jury, the general public, and the majority of crucially, Diddy views it as the Did's case is strengthened by the prosecution's. The defense team's space is running low. Their initial approach, which focused on in the role of Cassie Ventura and more accusers as swindlers, or it backfires when ex-partners are scorned. Particularly considering the testimonies currently supported by former insiders such as Gone Deal, originally presented as a resentment or an ex-lover's now. Exaggeration is being supported by a man who lived inside Diddy's inner circle for years. The defense team and the Sanctum are clearly rushing to stay ahead. In one of the more tumultuous courtroom scenes during the defense tried to undermine Cassie's reputation by displaying 2009 text messages displaying explicit and flirty behavior. Conversations you were having with Diddy. According to one defense lawyer, the freak-offs, you initiated some of them. Cassie said didn't refute it. Rather, she intensified her efforts. On the psychological and emotional control that she went through. Yes, I took part, she stated, just because I felt compelled to. The jury observed as she accepted responsibility for more than merely what she went through, but because of what she activated, and that degree of candor might have increased her credibility in seeing their eyes as the defense tried to discuss Cassie's romantic relationships with Kid Cudi and Michael B. Jordan during her pauses. Diddy's prosecution complained, and the court appeared to be sympathetic. To concur that it had nothing to do with the core charges. The instance highlighted just Diddy's legal team's desperation. They weren't constructing a sturdy defense in an attempt to obfuscate the seas with dramatic tabloids, and then the increased scrutiny surrounding Diddy's choices made outside of court. Benjamin Brafman, A former lawyer allegedly suggested that Diddy make a settlement with Diddy paid $10 million for Cassie in 2023. Rather than $30 million for legal specialists now hypothesize that this excessive payment was an indication of panic. A man attempting to calm a storm that turned into a hurricane. Man resigned soon after. What's more than one law insider thinks Diddy's present group is divided, with sources claiming that there are differences about whether to seek a plea agreement or continue battling. Says Gone Deal. Diddy has consistently disregarded suggestions to agree to or work with the federal examination. In a currently widely circulated deal stated clearly in the interview, he believes he's not the feds, but he's smarter than them. The courtroom is witnessing things unfold. The jury is observing a man who formerly now predicted absolute control makes desperate wagers in the present moment, and with insights from the deal that give context for these rulings, the defense's perception of as a misinterpreted genius, Diddy seems increasingly to be an illusion. Among the more concerning undertones of the expanding list of names is this trial. Circling behind the scenes friends, associates, and colleagues who might be asked to testify shortly. Some are prominent celebrities, others are previous workers having inside knowledge about, however, what they all share in Diddy's world. This is typical. They were sufficiently close to understand what actually transpired, and now it is said that the prosecution is getting ready to take a minimum of a couple of them to court. Several court reporters claim that the revelations of Gone Deal have created new routes for prosecutors. He has been named lists the individuals he saw at the freak-off. He saw performers at gatherings being trained security personnel who appeared the otherwise. Folks are familiar with all of this. People have been watching Deal's interviews since the years, but now that the federal investigators are looking into his assertions that previously sounded conspiratorial is becoming an indictment template. According to people familiar with the trial, there are already draft subpoenas for a number of former Bad Boy workers. There are rumors that former Diddy members Kane might testify, especially Don Aubrey and Richard O'Day, both of whom have openly charged Diddy with mistreatment or poisonous manipulation. If either of them assumes the position, it would destroy the defense claimed Cassie was a single betrayed lover. Next is the issue between Diddy's sons Christian and, according to reports,